Every morning at Alcatraz began the same way, a guard, boots echoing off wet concrete, counting bodies in bunks he'd counted 1,000 times before. On the morning of June 12, 1962, he counted 3 that weren't there. What he found instead, tucked into each bed, turned just enough toward the wall to fool a passing flashlight, were heads. Painted, human hair, real, taken from the prison barbershop. Close enough, in the dark, to buy a man a few more hours. By the time anyone realized what those hours had bought, the men were gone. This was Alcatraz, an island fortress in the middle of San Francisco Bay, wrapped in some of the coldest, fastest water on the West Coast. A prison built, quite literally, on the idea that some men could never get out. So how do you vanish from a place like that? And never be found again, not as a body, not as a headline, not even as a rumor anyone could prove. By 1962, Alcatraz had spent nearly 3 decades earning its reputation. It wasn't where you started a federal sentence. It's where you ended up after everywhere else had already failed to hold you. Frank Morris had that kind of record, a high IQ, a long list of prior escapes, and a mind that treated confinement as a puzzle rather than a punishment. John and Clarence Anglin arrived with their own history, bank robbers from a close, loyal Georgia family, the kind of brothers who didn't plan things separately. When the prison placed all 3 in adjoining cells, it created something Alcatraz had spent years trying to prevent: a team. What followed wasn't a single desperate act. It was months of patience. The concrete at the back of their cells, aging, salt-eaten, weaker than anyone in charge wanted to admit, could be scraped away by hand, a little at a time, hidden behind false vent covers built to pass a guard's glance but not a close inspection. They used what they had: spoons sharpened into tools, a stolen vacuum motor turned into a makeshift drill, patience measured in inches per week. Each session was a bet. If a guard leaned in too close, if a supervisor did an inspection out of routine, if one wrong sound carried down the tier, the plan, and possibly their lives, ended right there. They kept digging anyway. There were 4 men in on the plan, not 3. Alan West had helped design it from the start, but as the night approached, his own opening wasn't ready. Every version of the plan had assumed 4. Now it had to work with 3. Or not at all. They didn't wait for him. That decision, made in silence, in the dark, with no time to debate it, is the reason we know as much as we do about what happened next. West, left behind, became the one man who could describe the plan to investigators afterward, and the one man who never got to test whether it worked. On the night of June 11, 1962, the 3 men slipped through their enlarged openings and into a utility corridor that ran, unguarded, along the back of the cell block, a gap in a system built to have none. From there, a ventilator shaft, a rooftop, a 50-foot drop to the ground, and a shoreline that offered nothing but cold water in every direction. They had a raft, 50 stolen raincoats, glued and heat-sealed with the help of a converted accordion, working as a makeshift bellows, built over weeks into something that might hold together long enough to matter. Somewhere around midnight, 3 men pushed a homemade raft into San Francisco Bay. This is the last verified moment of their story. Everything after it belongs to the water, the current, and 60 years of investigation that never quite closed the file. By morning, Alcatraz was in chaos. Sirens across the bay, the FBI, the Coast Guard, local police, one of the largest manhunts the region had ever seen, launched to find 3 men who had, by then, already had hours of head start and total darkness on their side. Searchers found pieces of the raft, a paddle, personal effects recovered near Angel Island within days. What they never found, not then, not in the 17 years the FBI spent on the case, not in the decades the U.S. Marshals Service kept it open after that, was a body, no confirmation of death, no confirmed sighting of life. The FBI closed its file in 1979 with a probability, not a fact. They most likely drowned. The Marshals Service disagreed enough to keep looking. Alcatraz was closed less than a year after the escape, a prison built to guarantee an ending, undone in part by a night it couldn't explain. 6 decades later, that's still true. No verified body, no verified survivor, just 3 empty cells, 3 painted decoy heads, and a case the U.S. government has never been able to close with certainty. Maybe that's the real story of Alcatraz. Not that 3 men may have beaten it, but that, even now, no one can prove whether they did.